Welcome back to another episode of the Educated Homebuyer Live. This is where we answer your real estate mortgage questions, talk about the economy, inflation, all things housing. Welcome back. Josh is our esteemed mortgage professional that joins us weekly here to help out with the mortgage side of the questions. Josh, welcome back once again.
Hopefully to confuse and mystify everyone.
Oh, every week you do that. So last week we had the Fed come out and the Fed raised the Fed funds rate as we expected they would. Little pause, if you will, in their statement. And, that was kind of the end of last week. And then we thought we would get an unemployment number on Friday that was actually going to report higher, which would signal to the market that employment's getting worse and further confirm that the Fed is going to pause, when in fact we actually saw unemployment go down somehow to 3.4%. So all these layoffs, all of that means absolutely nothing in the market. We saw unemployment go down. Market took it in stride and essentially was waiting for CPI data, which we got today. Now, here's the crazy thing. I think Monday, Josh sent me an update basically saying that there was a chance that the CPI data was going to come in hot because things were, rent, shelter, inflation data, it being a lagging indicator, wasn't going to show the lag quite yet. And in turn, we might see, positive CPI report or a negative CPI report, if you will. But fortunately, today we got things in line with expectations. Core CPI sitting at 5.5, headline inflation at 4.9. So things are trending in the right direction. Josh, where do you want to start today? I'm going to start by looking at some charts.
Yeah, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, let's do this. So we're going to pull up some charts here. Those of you who are watching here on YouTube, obviously you're seeing the charts. Those of you who are at home or on the podcast listening to this, because this is also a podcast, as many of you guys know, found on Spotify, Apple. There's also a video of this on a YouTube channel actually, no, that is not. This video stays on this channel, Josh. It doesn't go anywhere else. So just disregard that. But nevertheless, we
do need to test and see if there's any downside or negative to throwing it on the other channel.
No,
too.
Agreed. So what this chart is this is month over month change in CPI. So there are the April at the far left there, the 0.4 was last April's 0.4. And essentially we got the same reading today on CPI. So that number at the far end cancels out. So if you added all those up, you'd be at 4.9%. The key here is the May and June numbers. May 0.9, June 1.2. So if you took, what we got this month, 0.4, over the next 2 months, so that what we're replacing there, Josh, is 2.1%. Of the 4.9, you're replacing 2.1%. So if you got 0.5, just say it went up a little bit and you're at 1%, you're still going to drop 1.1% over the next 2 months, even if that reading came in high, which in theory should bring inflation down. Now, that's not the way we want to see it happen, because if that happens, it's not, the market doesn't like surprises, as we've talked before. But nevertheless, I thought it was positive, a good place to start just by looking at where CPI was, where it's headed. I think that's a good basis to start the show. So Josh, thoughts?
Well, the one that boggles me, and I want to go back and look at last year's July report and say, what was going on that we went from 0.9, 1.2 to 0, and then 0.2, July and August. Both of those don't make sense. I don't know if we had a big drop in energy month over month. But yeah, whatever the reason there, do expect to see some moderation. One of the reasons that we were looking at not expecting as much improvement as was anticipated in this report is that energy prices went up last month. And the funny thing is, now as we said at the beginning of this month, we saw a dip in oil prices to kind of a couple of year lows here. So next month, barring some absolute spike here for the remainder of the month, energy will be something that's going to improve for for us there. The housing component is going to continue to improve. We saw a weird number in the data this month that said used car prices were up like 50% month over month, or some absurd number. So when you get weird noise like that, it'll usually shake out in the following months. So it'll be interesting to see next month, but I wouldn't be shocked at all to see a 0.3 or a 0.4 for each of the next 2 months. So on the low end, 0.6 total with 2.1 coming off, so a 1.5% drop over the next couple of months, easily 1% in the next couple of months. Now, still, if we're at 4.9, that takes us to 3.9. No one's taken a victory lap at 3.9. So it was interesting, Jeb, seeing the futures markets react today.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 100% likelihood of a cut in September.
Something like that. I saw one that said 100%, one that said 80%. I didn't go out and confirm either of them, but nevertheless, high probability that cuts start in September. So again, I'm not necessarily, I'm not on board with that at the moment. There's nothing that's indicated to me that there would be a cut anytime this year based on the data that we have so far. So I'm going out and saying I don't necessarily think a cut's going to happen at this point. Even
there's no reason for it to happen. Look at this chart that we're looking at. You start having tougher year over year comparisons for improvement, but also at the same time, once we get through October, if you saw a bunch of 0.2, 0.3 reads between now and October, it gets you into the high twos, and maybe they start thinking about it. You need, if there's no problems and you're moderating towards what you want, why would you cut? They're only going to cut if there's a problem. So to me, the market is saying, we think with all of this tightening, with all of the bank issues, there's going to be a problem that's going to make something we're not seeing right now.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I haven't seen it yet.
But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's the only logical reason as to why you would expect. If nothing breaks between now and September, they're not going to cut.
Right. No, good point. So here is another one that I always like to. Let's see here. How do we get that back up? All right. So this is another chart that I thought was interesting. It shows the hike in the Fed funds rates, how quickly they did it. So the current cycle is the one in the left. Look how quickly they hiked. So basically 10 months, 11 months, it took them to go up 500 basis points, where if you look at the bottom blue line there, it took them 36 months, 3 years to go up 200 basis points. So again, all relative. That was 2015 to 2018, completely different environment, but just shows you how quickly they took the Fed funds rate up, how quickly that, we haven't seen the full effects of all that credit tightening yet, which is, I think, why a lot of people out there believe that there's an opportunity for a recession. That being said, these are the recessions that have happened: when they started the first hike, when they started the last hike, and the result that happened during that period of time. So out of, what's this, 14, I believe is the number here, 11 of them ended up in a recession. The other 3 were some sort of soft landing. So the high probability that there is a recession coming if we're not in one already. So Josh, I know you have some charts here. This one is the share of firms planning to increase prices. So what are we looking at?
We look from the start of COVID. The gray bar there is COVID. From the start of COVID through early 22, it was a straight line up. Every company is raising prices, either because they can or because they have to, because their input prices. And we stayed there all the way late into 22, and you're seeing those numbers come down. So it's just another factor that's telling us that inflation should continue to come down. There are some sticky elements there. If someone wants to debate that, hey, we're not getting back down to 2% in the next 2 to 3 years, we can have that debate. But anyone that thinks that we're staying at 4.9% is just not looking at the same numbers that we are. This one here, Jeb, what's important to look at, one of the measures that the Fed is looking at, saying, hey, the economy is really hot, we need to increase unemployment. We need to decrease the employment rate, increase unemployment. Well, this shows you that right now we've got what in 2022, about 64% of the US population is working age. By just past 2030, we're down to 61%. And you go, it's only 3% change. Well, we got 300 million people in the country. That's like 9 million people being taken out of the workforce. I think this is a feature of our economy going forward. And I can certainly understand people being worried, business owners and the government being worried about wage-based inflation. We have not seen it so far, but I don't think we're going to see high levels of unemployment for the foreseeable future as the workforce continues to age out.
No, absolutely. And here, similar to what you were just talking about with regards to the prime working age.
Yeah, we keep hearing these stories. People don't want to work. No one wants to work. But this is telling us from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we're right in line. We're above the long-term trend there. So what's going to change? I don't think people are going to want to drop out of the workforce. We've had inflation. Prices are up. We all know you need to make a living. And it looks like from the chart here, most people are out doing just that.
No, absolutely. So let's start talking about some inventory. So inventory this week actually fell. So if you guys remember, I'm going to take you back 2 weeks. We were sitting at somewhere around 414,000 homes. Last week, we increased to 422. So we increased by about 2%. There was kind of this, meeting of the minds with a lot of economists and people out there, professionals out there thinking, okay, that was essentially the bottom end inventory. When we saw it at 414, it should continue to increase from this point forward. Well, we saw a decrease week over week, and now we're sitting at 419. Now, again, I don't think looking at data weekly is always the best way to look at it, because again, you get small jumps, small declines for one reason or another, but it's important to pay attention to the trend. And so far, the trend is that inventory is not really increasing. A 2% jump, a 1% decline, whatever, you're more or less the same. We're talking about a few thousand homes here at the end of the day. So nevertheless, inventory is not increasing, which is continuing to put strain on housing, house prices, all of the stuff that we've talked about. Orange County today, 2,051 homes, about where we were last week. Huntington Beach, 150, about where we were last week. So we're not really seeing an increase in inventory. Now, I always like to mention that doesn't mean no new homes have come to the market since last week. It just means we've got the same amount of homes as we did last week, which means some people pulled their home off the market, right? Those homes are no longer available. Some people put their home on the market and they haven't yet sold. Some people put their home on the market and found a buyer immediately. Some homes that were on the market for 60 days or 90 days or 100 found a buyer. So it's give and take with some of these numbers, but there's always activity out there happening, and it's reflecting at the moment with demand and supply essentially kind of meeting in the middle, which is we're not really adding any new homes.
Jeb, before we go on to that one, let me throw out these numbers. I didn't think it was worth throwing in, but new listing weekly data over the past 3 years. In 2023, we've been getting about 58,000 new listings. Is it a week? New weekly data.
Mm-hmm.
So 22, last year it was 76,000. The year before that, it was 73,000. Now, to give it context, you go back, 2017 was 99,000, 2016, 88,000, 2015, 95,000. We're at like 60% of what was a normal, not great, just kind of normal market. And now, Jeb, roll forward to the next chart. I threw that in there, just kind of this gives you a bigger long-term perspective. Jeb does a great job of showing that one where it's overlaying the years. So you have to look at the lines and see where we're at. This tells you what's happened since 2008. We peaked at a monstrous amount of 4 million homes for sale on the market, and now we're down to 1 million. But that trend is pre-COVID. Like, we went down below. The long-term trend is what there, 2.4 million active listings, and now the new normal appears to be somewhere closer to 1 to 1.5, and we're right now at 1. We need to get closer to 1.5, which is kind of what we talked about, Jeb, today on the podcast that we recorded for next week episode. What has to change to get us to maybe at least a 1.5, if not 2 million active listings?
Now, something I want to note here, if you're watching this and going, Jeb, last chart, you said there's 419,000 homes. Josh is bringing up a chart here saying there's 1 million active homes. there's a big discrepancy there. What's going on? Unfortunately, you've got two different parties, if you will, that look at two different metrics when it comes to inventory. The Altos research takes active listings, only the property that is available to put an offer in on. The National Association of Realtors uses homes that are on the market, that are under contract, that are pending, as well as active homes on the market. So they count all that inventory, which isn't actually available inventory. So the number is actually far less than 1 million homes on the market available, but nevertheless, the trend essentially is the same. So just if you ever hear people saying there's 980,000 homes on the market, yeah, in theory there are, but 580,000 or almost 600,000 of those homes are in escrow. So they're not for you to purchase.
So think about that, Jeb. What you just said is it probably makes this chart more aggressive in that direction, because right now, what's the average market time? About 1.5, 2 months on the market?
I mean, nationwide, it's like probably 2 months, 2.5, something like that.
So call it 2 and say your average escrow is 40 days. That tells you that you have like 3 times as many included in this metric as in the other metric. But in reality, over time, when the way they're adding up thing that's in escrow and available in a normal market, it takes 6 months to sell a house and then 40 days for it to close. So the NAR metric, only a portion of those are unavailable. The majority of them are available right now. Like a third of those homes are not available for you to buy because they're in escrow with current market time. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it definitely is understating the drop off in terms of available inventory.
Well, I mean, I guess one thing I look at is that chart's always been consistent, right? So they've always counted all of that inventory. So their metric doesn't necessarily change on their side. It would be different if one way they were if they were calculating it one way at one period and then they changed it and the graph didn't reflect that. But
yeah,
nevertheless, the trend is still down. Right?
Not saying it's invalid. I'm saying it's worse now because historically we haven't seen 2-month market time. So as the absolute number of homes decreases while the market time stays low, the chart doesn't actually look as bad as it actually is.
No, absolutely. And so just another view of similar data, just showing that, you start to see inventory go up and then all of a sudden it peaks back down. So new listings obviously declining, which is adding to, the inventory problem that we see on this chart here, right? So going back, this actually reflects the information like we've talked about, doesn't count pendings and actives and all of that stuff. But historically speaking, we are still well below where we would have been prior to the pandemic. And then some of these other charts we look at every single week. So new listings this past week, 77,000 compared to 105 last year. Why is that important? Normally, this is the time of the year when inventory increases. I like to point that out every time. Usually peaks during the summer, which you kind of see in the middle of that chart there, the high pink area, the peak, and then they come down, or the dark pink, whatever you want to look at, and then it comes down. We're getting to a point within the next 2 months where we should be seeing the peak in inventory. And if we've already, if we don't see an increase in inventory is going to get very, very depleted as we head into fall, winter months. Percent of properties, price reduction, obviously less. We've now passed 2019. So there's less price reductions happening on the market today than in 2019. Median home price, still going up. Again, we don't give a lot of weight to median, but it's important to note, we've talked about it. It typically lags on the way up and it lags on the way down. Either way, we want to give you the info here. Pending median price of properties going under contract, 380. So that number is still going up a little bit. So it's not going the other direction. We're not seeing big declines in prices. That's why you're not seeing crashes, guys. And then this one, many of you guys probably aren't aware of this yet. So this came out today. In fact, this afternoon or around noon today, FHA rescinds part of their LLPAs. So you guys have heard us talk about LLPAs before, the loan level price adjustments. There was supposed to be one with DTI that they had pushed off until August, which, was going to add another layer on top of this. So what actually happened with this, Josh?
Basically, it's untenable. It doesn't work. So what the industry was saying is debt to income has been shown to be one of the worst predictors of risk in the loan. But more importantly, things change throughout the process. This would never happen with me, Jeb, because I always get income perfectly correct down to the penny. But let's say you have difficult to calculate income, and your loan officer does their absolute best with the information at hand, which is not as good as it's going to be later in the process after verification of employment, all that stuff comes in, and you're at a 39% debt to income. Well, some information comes in. We find out your homeowner's insurance is a little more. The property tax rate is a little bit higher. And next thing you know, you're at a 41% debt to income ratio. Well, now you have a 3/4 point hit to the loan level price adjustment. Now your rate is a 1/4% higher, and we may lose the approval. You may have an automated approval. Now we're at a higher debt to income ratio. You just can't have these moving targets. We know what your credit score is at the beginning of the process. We know how much you're putting down. You can't have an unknown variable that moves throughout the process and change pricing based off of that when we've never done it before. So long way of saying the industry, all types of members of the mortgage industry and real estate also, were able to push back and say, hey, we've survived up to this point and never had an issue with this. We don't need this because it would be very problematic and troublesome in actual practice.
Well, there you go, guys. That was a lot of information spread over a 20-minute period. So thanks for bearing with us during that period of time. So a lot of information given there. If you're just jumping on now, missed part of it, again, you can go watch it, back again here later. You can listen to it on the podcast channel, on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. In addition to that, something I didn't mention earlier, Josh kind of referenced it. Today we talked about what needs to happen to get things back to quote unquote normal. Something has to change, right? And so we actually did a podcast episode today that's going to come out next week where we talk about that in detail. So you can head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, and that will pop in your feed when it is ready. And this past week, Josh, what did we talk about on the podcast? I forget. LLPAs, which again, there's a lot of information there. A lot of information to digest. Check it out if you have time. And again, thanks for the support. So,
well, Jeb, I wanted to actually say I'm happy to see ZL here because we had a comment, an unhappy comment on that YouTube channel from ZL saying that we were completely wrong and off base. So we had a little back and forth in the comments over there on that YouTube channel. You were not participating, but I handled both parts of the debate for us. But basically, he thought we were saying that it wasn't misinformation, or we were saying it was misinformation, and it wasn't misinformation that rates are actually higher for people with good credit. 100% not true. We didn't say it was valid. We didn't say it was reasonable. We said two pieces of misinformation. The government was saying that people that they had to do this and that the new changes better reflected risk. A lie and misinformation. The media was saying that people with good credit were going to pay more than people with bad credit. Also a lie and misinformation. So we had misinformation on all sides.
We did. In the meantime, Isadora. Isadora. I like Dora.
Do you see an A at the end?
I'm Spanish, bro. Jeb, what do you recommend to a friend looking to buy a home in Orange County? Look now or wait until the end of the year? I don't see prices falling. I don't see prices falling either. What I see is a lot of competition out there, and I see multiple offers, and I see that in writing offers for my clients. In fact, the one that we got declined on today had 24 offers. They only responded to the top 2. We were $100,000 over the asking price. Asking price was $1,080,000. We offered $1,175,000-ish, somewhere in that ballpark, 170. So 90,000 above. And we didn't get anything. And they're putting, 15% down, waiving contingencies, doing all kinds of stuff, and no dice. So that's what the housing market looks like. Prices are not going to fall. That's simple. If you can find a house, great. If you can't, I guess keep looking. If they need an agent, reach out. We'll have a conversation. How's that? But thanks for the super chat. Okay, Josh, I don't know if we flagged anything already here or we're just going through, but let's put Mr. Buttery on here. A lot of people are holding onto their homes that have a 2 to 4% interest rate. with a kung fu grip, keeping new listings on existing homes low. There needs to be some incentive for these people to sell. I don't disagree with that. I've rattled this around in my brain. I've read people that have not debated this, but had an opinion on it. And I agree with most of all of it. Going above the capital gains exemption, not having any capital gains at all would be something that you could incentivize. Selling to a first-time home buyer could get incentivized. I mean, there's so many things that you could do, but at the end of the day, a lot of it has to do with what that seller is going to buy, what's that payment going to look like. And when you have somebody, offer all the incentive you want, but when you have an interest rate at 3% and your new home that you're going to finance is going to be 6% or 6.5%, a tax benefit is great, but that doesn't help me on a monthly basis in most cases. So that's what we've got to figure out. And, the easy answer is, how do you figure out how to make more affordable housing? And that's not going to happen anytime soon. Mr. Josh.
Jeb, you mentioned the gentleman over at Calculated Risk. I don't know whether it was his idea or actually his buddy Lawler came up with that, or at least proposed it. I don't know if he was just reiterating what he heard somewhere else. But that idea right now, if you've lived in a home for 2 out of the last 5 years, you get 250,000 gains tax-free as a single person, 500,000 as a married person. What we see is a lot of older folks say, if I just ride it out and in 10, 12, 15 years, I'll be gone. My kids inherit the property. They get a stepped up basis. There's no tax paid on that. So if the government just said, hey, we're having a problem here, we don't have enough people selling their homes, let these people sell now and get the gains tax-free, which are not going to be taxed anyways, and bring those homes into circulation, allow them to possibly buy a smaller home, go somewhere else, move, relocate, any number of things that would be good economically with a very low tax hit. I'm sure we would have the Congressional Budget Office get involved and be able to run numbers and tell us what it would actually look like. It would probably not be revenue neutral. It would be revenue negative. But there would be some pretty big benefits there. We had talked, there's another post in here, Jeb, and I think I had marked it, basically saying what we need to do is stop things. Actually, it was CL. We threw it up. We didn't even read what the comment was. They want to fix affordability, start by attacking things like taking up the supply like Airbnb. There are already local rules affecting Airbnb, just needed at the federal level. There's absolutely some truth to that. It's not consistent. It's not all areas. Some areas literally have nearly no Airbnbs. Others, it is significant. Jeb, in the Crawford report a few weeks ago, they were talking that, hey, during the Super Bowl in Phoenix, a lot of these Airbnb owners didn't get anywhere near the rent and payments that they wanted and were counting on. So that's going to bring some supply to their market. So we'll see over the long haul, when new buyers can't buy an Airbnb with a really low interest rate, it makes the cash flow harder. Some of that will naturally come back. I like seeing market-based solutions, and higher interest rates will take care of some of that. But there's absolute truth to some of that Airbnb short-term rental being an issue. Some of this, especially in certain markets, being institutional investors, being able to get really cheap money and buying up single-family residences and taking them out of the pool. So we should be attacking this on many, many angles. It's one of those things that none of those ideas are going to be a night and day difference in terms of bringing supply to the market and kind of keeping a lid on prices and making it more affordable, but they'll all play a role in helping us.
Good stuff. All right. So Alejandro has been watching for a while, but never been able to make it, but able to make it tonight. So thanks, Alejandro, for the support and being here and watching us. It's, again, how we grow and why we continue to essentially pour into the community, because you guys want to see us. You want to hear from us. A lot of you guys show up every single week. And for that, I'm grateful. And you help the channel grow. And that's, part of the reason that show up every single week and give you guys, an hour and a half, 2 hours of family time, hopefully to, stress the importance of home ownership and, give you guys some education and some guidance so that you can make the right decision for yourself. Cindy Juggle Goddess says, what a good way to research crime and safety issues. What is a good way to research crime and safety issues for specific neighborhoods? So I can't say for certain, but here in Huntington Beach, we have a website that you can go to. I think it's crimereports.org or crime reports, something along those lines, where you can type in, it pulls up local information, and you can put in an address, and it will show you all of the crimes that have been reported around that area, like literally everything. If your neighbor was, got arrested for assault and battery or called or whatever, it shows up on that map, and you can get all the detail, all the info that they're talking about on Nextdoor. You can get the real facts there. But there are websites like that. I don't know if they're countywide, statewide, what they are, but there's always a pretty good resource to do it. If not, talk to a local agent. Most agents are aware of these websites because it's information that home buyers want to know. So talk to a local agent in your market, and they should be able to guide you through that. All right. Let's see here. John, this is classic. Says he worked at Kinston Golden Corral for years. This little punk in a herringbone used to hog all the steak tips. Bro, that was me. That was me. We must know each other, John.
Jeb had John cheeks full of steak tips.
I love how sirloin tips. I love how John listened to the episode and just, he takes notes clearly, and put multiple episodes together to come up with that one. But that's classic. That's good stuff. All right. Red Apples Kim.
She changed her name.
She did. All right. I was going to say something that Red Apple Bottom is what I came up with it. And then I was like, it's not really proper. But anyway, Josh on the podcast, lower credit equals better rates. Would you say that most buyers will use FHA, whether low or high credit scores? Either way, I think everyone will turn out a positive note. So I think this is something to talk about, Josh. Everyone thinks FHA is for lower credit score buyers. But with some of these LLPH, that in itself is not true. So just get that, out there. But with some of the LLPA changes, it's affecting credit scores even into the 700, 720, where it makes it, more beneficial to go with an FHA loan for many home buyers out there. So Josh, you want to, kind of give a little bit more detail on that?
Yeah. So we have two pieces to it. The interest rate on an FHA loan is always going to be at least 0.5%, sometimes more, lower than conventional loans. A few weeks ago, I saw the spread like 0.75%. So when you look at that, it pushes the best of all borrowers. When you say like best credit, 800 credit score, putting 3 to 5% down, it's 0.75% better. You're like, okay, let me take that seriously. Now, what can offset that? If you have an 800 credit score and there's two of you, two borrowers, so there's less risk to the MI company, not just a single point of failure. They'll give you improved terms. Maybe you can get that mortgage insurance down to 0.3, 0.35 versus the 0.55 on an FHA. So there's still going to be a 0.3 to 0.5% improvement in the rate and mortgage insurance that you're paying on that property. Everyone should consider it. So we have got a couple of confounding factors in there. That FHA charges a 1.75% upfront mortgage insurance premium. You don't pay it out of pocket, but you're putting 3.5% down, and then they put 1.75 back on the property. So you have less equity when you're walking in. Something to consider if you're in that 740, 760 price range, where the FHA is probably going to have a lower payment, but you're going to owe more on the property. So we should probably look at that and consider it. And Jeb, I was doing such a great job of explaining that I forgot what the second point was there. But there are other factors to consider, timeline that you're going to be in the property, and the equity along those lines. But once you get below a 700, like there's no comparison. It's so much cheaper FHA that whatever the cost, you would go that route. So I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of people with 720 and below even consider a 3 or a 5% down with those new LLPAs. That was the other thing, Jeb. Condominiums. If you're buying a condo and you have a 700, 720 credit score, you may end up buying a condo that doesn't have an FHA approval. So you're going to be forced to go conventional and pay the higher terms. We talked about Jeb's buddy last week. The property they're buying, a flipper bought it. They didn't want to wait the 91 days to pass the flip rule, and they did a beautiful job on this house. They rightfully said, I want this house, and the seller said, I've got multiple offers, either go conventional or I'll move on to the next offer. So there are more things to it than just, hey, what has the lowest rate in payment? But I think we're going to see a big increase in FHA volumes after those LLPA increases.
All right. Jessica is asking, are solar interest rates dependent on your mortgage interest rate? If you refinance your mortgage rate, can you also refinance your solar? So the two aren't tied to one another. Solar rate, my understanding, has nothing to do with your interest rate and vice versa. So solar rates are going to vary, depending by company. I mean, well, are you talking about the solar rate that the city is giving you on the solar, or are you talking about the rate that you're financing it? Either way, it's not tied to your mortgage rate. But all of those things are going to vary by location, by city, by multiple different factors. Can you refinance solar? I don't know. It depends on the company that financed it. I'm sure. I mean, I've learned that almost everything is refinanceable to some extent, but doesn't necessarily mean you should do it or want to do it. But I don't have a hard, fast answer for you on that one. Josh, what goes into an interest rate? The question here is from Rodney. Says, would a first-time home buyer get a good interest rate? So can a first-time home buyer get the same interest rate as an experienced buyer that's bought 50 homes?
It's not a factor in any pricing. So like when we put it, so we use a system called Loan Sifter. There's another one called Optimal Blue. There's Lender Price. There's 5, 6, 7 of these pricing engines. And they will have a box where you would check that the person is a first-time home buyer, but that's primarily for eligibility. So if you're looking to a 3% down conventional, one of the borrowers has to be a first-time buyer to be eligible for the 3% down, or it has to be home ready, home possible eligible, which means 80% or less than the area median income. But it doesn't factor into the price that you're going to pay. A first-time buyer will get the same interest rates on FHA, VA, USDA, Fannie, Freddie as any other borrower. Some jumbo loan programs won't allow first-time buyers. So it's really an eligibility issue. Are you eligible? If you're eligible, you're going to get the same terms as everyone else. I've never seen a program that actually charges worse terms to a first-time home buyer, although I'm sure they're out there. It's just very uncommon.
This might be the most accurate comment tonight. Khalid says, if housing stays like this, then it looks like we'll all go down together. Home buyers, realtors, and mortgage lenders. So what talking about there is just the lack of activity out in the market. It's not a lack of people willing to buy homes. It's a lack of people able to buy homes for one reason or another. There's just a lot less activity in the market. Now, going down is all relative, but yeah, there's going to be less transactions happening this year. One thing I'll tell you, and I've said this for the last 6 months, a lot less realtors are going to be in the business in 6 months. A lot of those teams, the whole industry at the moment has geared toward this whole team environment. I'm going to be, a team where I'm the head of the team and I have 15, 20 agents working underneath me and so on and so forth. I will tell you, those people are the first to fall in this whole thing. And the reason for that is because their marketing budgets, they have to feed all of those agents on the team for the most part in some sort of fashion with marketing, with expenses and what have you. A lot of these teams are putting out a lot of money and not getting the return that they would like to get because of just the lack of activity in the market. And because of that, there's going to be less of these teams around. There's going to be less realtors around. Same thing for mortgage side. A lot of these guys have built big operations with tons of people working underneath them, buying leads. It's a different environment. It will change in a couple of years, but for now, it's definitely going to be slower. Josh, you want to add anything to that?
Looks like we all go down together. Go down what? We have
down in volume, Josh. We go down in volume.
Well, hopefully we go down in numbers. We had way more people in the mortgage industry than we needed. We have way more realtors. I mean, we got at one point, Jeb, weren't we? We had more realtors than homes for sale in the U.S. Mm-hmm. Like we still tells you that it's silly, and people. There are a million things that will come out of this. and it's cyclical. So unfortunately, once the market turns back up, whether that's 3 years, 8 years, 15 years from now, we'll see licensees go back up and people come back into the industry. But it was needed. Like, I don't sit here and cry for anyone, including myself. No one needed to make the amount of money that I made in 21, 22, 2020 and 2021. No one needed to work that much either. Basically during the pandemic, it was at your desk at 7 a.m. and off the computer at 11 a.m., get some food, go to sleep, and get up and do it over again. So it self-corrects, and the market is what it is. We can cry about it, we can complain about it, or you can get to work and get it done.
There you go. The answer is always work harder. All right. Bearded Vato, would you say the sucky housing market, we're in a buyer's or a seller's market? I would say we're still in a seller's market for the most part. It's not because demand has picked up that we're in a seller's market. It's the lack of inventory and most sellers still driving the ship, if you will, if they're priced correctly. Now, I will say homes that are not priced correctly are not selling. So this isn't the same seller's market that we had a year ago or 2 years ago. It's a seller's market if your home is priced right, it's in good condition, it's in a good location. That's when it's a seller's market. There are homes still sitting that aren't selling when they're not following the quote unquote rules, if you will. So but again, real estate's local. You might be in a market where you're like, dude, there's homes everywhere, I could buy anything I wanted. Well, that's not where I am. And that's not what I've seen across the board in reading, other markets and what have you. So that's it. Josh Arnab says, I'm buying a new construction home. They're giving $20,000 as a seller credit for closing cost if we choose their preferred lender. Is this a good option, or should I shop around for other lenders? So Josh, what are your thoughts here? I have my thoughts, but what are your thoughts?
Usually when it's a $20,000 credit, there's not $20,000 of fluff that they can hide in there. In a normal market, when builders are doing things like, we'll give you a $3,000 credit, a $2,500 credit, we can easily overcome that and still get you better terms. $20,000 is hard, but the more important question is, should I still shop around? You need to talk to at least one other lender. I tell people all the time, hey, I'm looking at new construction, builders lender is doing this. Cool. Send me the loan estimate. Let me look at it and see if it looks in the ballpark. What are they offering you? And generally it is. I have a client right now, two people. I looked at the loan estimate last week. It was $25,000 from the builder. And you look at it and you're like, they're not hiding $25,000 of crap in there. Maybe they're $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 higher than it needs to be, but they're giving you $25,000 to offset that. The other one was getting $2,500. And at $2,500, you're like, these terms are not great. I can get you better terms than that and put you in a better spot. So by all means, check with at least one other reputable lender, and hopefully they'll be honest with you and not try and sell you on why you should use them. And here's my case that I make to anyone. Listen, I am happy to tell you that that's a great deal with the builder. You're never going to refinance with that builder's lender. And in 1 to 2 years, we're going to have better interest rates. And I'd love to build a relationship with you and help you when the time comes to bury their loan with a new, much lower interest rate.
All right. Triple Gemini has a question. Says,
hold on, Jeb. You said you had some thoughts on Arnab's question.
Well, I saw this question and I clicked on it. Let me answer this. You got me all sidetracked here, bro. Triple Gemini says, bought house 2 years ago, owe $100,000 with a 3% interest rate. Property taxes went up, by making my mortgage payment increase by $900 more a month.
Something's not adding up, Jeb.
Filling house poor. I don't want to sell and buy a smaller home. Opinion, please. So if you must have bought a really expensive house if your property taxes went up by $900 more a month. But you only owe $100,000 on it. So you probably have a lot of equity. I would just go buy a house in cash. I mean, something like Josh said doesn't seem accurate. $900 more a year seems accurate, but $900 a month doesn't. But nevertheless, here's what I would say. You owe $100,000 with a 3% interest rate. You're thinking about downsizing. So here's what I would do. I would run the numbers at finding something that you like downsize wise. What's that going to cost you price wise? Talk to a lender. What's that going to be monthly payment wise? What are the property taxes on that property going to be with everything in? Does it make sense to move? If the answer is yes, then you sell and move. Is that property even available in this market? Is there inventory in that price point that you're looking that's going to allow you to do that? Is also something to consider. If the answer is no, and you're still in a position where it's unaffordable, then you don't really have an option other than to sell your home and go rent something. But even then, I would ask you to look at your market, figure out what you can rent for, what you're trying to pay. Is that reasonable for you? There's a lot that needs to be considered here, but it seems crazy that if you bought your house 2 years ago, you're going to see a 900 increase in your taxes on a monthly basis if you only owe 100 grand.
If you were, Jeb, if you were in a state with 2.5% property taxes, the value would have to go up $400,000. The assessed value would have to go up $400,000 to get a 10% increase or $10,000 increase in your annual property taxes. So something's not adding up. I have a feeling there's something with the impounds. They butchered the impounds. It's a temporary increase. Maybe there's some increase to the assessment, but there's more to it than just what we're hearing.
Yeah. So that I would look a little bit deeper on that. But Josh threw me on the spot a moment ago with this question. So where is Mr. Arnab? I don't see the question. But nevertheless, we'll just answer it. So I think if you are pre-approved with the builder, or they want to push you towards the builder, a lot like Josh said, go out and have a conversation with another lender. Compare the two. What are you getting from the builder's lender? What are the incentives that they're offering? With that 25K, is it going towards your rate? Is it going towards the improvements in the property? All of that stuff. And then compare it to a broker in your market. What kind of rate can you get? Is there any credits coming from that lender that could help you do what the builder's lender is trying to do? And just put a side-by-side comparison and make a decision. It should be pretty black and white, in the case that they're offering you $25,000. Now, if they're offering you $25,000 credit towards your loan to be able to buy the rate down and do certain, that's probably going to benefit you in more ways than them giving you $25,000 towards builder incentives. Because what I've learned in real estate is $25,000 on a new construction property, because of their upcharges on all of this stuff, because they charge way more on the builder upgrade side than it does to actually have a contractor do it yourself. You're not getting as much out of that incentive. So again, easy answers, compare the two and make a decision from there. But even then, it's not a set in stone decision until it's game time, right? If that property's built and you're ready to go, then you probably need to make the decision now. If you're months away, then just keep doing what you're doing. Keep in touch with both and then make a decision when you're ready. All right. Josh J. Homeboy says, what's the difference between a recast and a refinance? When should one do one versus doing the other?
Refinance, you are replacing your current loan with a new loan. They're going to pay that loan off and you have a new lender, usually because you're getting a lower interest rate or you're getting a bigger loan to get some of your equity out of your property. A recast is almost the opposite. You're staying with the same lender and you're putting money into the property. So now you have a much lower payment. And because your rate is better than what is available in the market, it doesn't make sense to go out and refinance with a new lender, the new lower or smaller loan. You go to the lender and it's actually a form of modification where they will give you a new lower payment that will amortize the new loan balance over the remaining term of the loan. So you get a lower monthly payment.
There you go. Good stuff. There was a question here that I clicked on. Platinum Black. How long has it taken your clients to find houses and get offers accepted these days? Finding houses is not the problem. In fact,
getting the offer accepted
is the problem. So, normally this time of year, I would have closed, I don't know. I usually sell on average about 30 homes a year, give or take, a couple here or there. This year, I think I've closed 5 or 6, something like that. Have a couple in escrow and a listing or 2 coming, but volume is way down. And it's not a lack of people putting in offers. I'm putting in offers all the time. And I'm not talking, if somebody comes to me and wants to write some stupid offer, I'm not your guy. I'm not, we're not going to come in and go well below the asking price in a market like we're in at the moment. Just because I know it's not going to go anywhere. We're both wasting our time. So the offers I'm putting in are solid offers. These are good offers, and we're not getting anywhere. And so that is the problem in a lot of markets out there. And unfortunately, I don't see that changing anytime soon. So, Josh, do you get the same interest rate for home refi and home purchase if one would apply for both?
If you are doing a rate and term refinance, generally cash out is going to have adjustments on conventional loans. FHA, VA generally do not have adjustments for refinances. If you get into jumbo, non-QM lenders, everyone kind of sets their own rules. But for the most part, no, unless you're taking cash out. And yes, cash out rates are worse than a refinance, a rate and term refinance rate.
All right, good stuff. Pulse Powered has a comment here about the new construction, and the incentive says new construction offered $30K. Then they later said closing cost is $30K. All fluff. But then Dream for All came along, and I got lucky. So you're one of the lucky ones, huh? Have you closed? I want to know more. Let me know. Yeah. Let me know where you are in the process in the comments. I'm interested in learning where you are and how the process went for you. But if you are, you're one of the lottery winners, if you will, is what we're calling those people. All right. Monica's got to go to open house at school tonight. Thanks for joining us, Monica. Iffy Jules says, will a lender accept both W-2 and 1099, or does it have to be one or the other? Because I work at a W-2 job and I drive for Amazon as a contractor. So this is a really, really good question here.
And it sort of hits on multiple things. The simple question is, can I have W-2 income and 1099 income? The answer in theory is yes, but now we have two jobs. So you're really getting to the guidelines for second job. Lender wants you to have had the second job for 2 years to be able to use the income. We've talked about it before on the show. The reason for that is they don't want you to go, ooh, I don't qualify. I'm going to go get a job at McDonald's for the next 6 weeks to boost my income, qualify for your home, and then quit that second job. So in this situation, assuming the W-2 job is your primary job, you've had that for 2 years. Okay, cool. We can use that income. Now, the 1099 is a second job. We have to have had it for 2 years. And remember, they don't just take the amount of income off of your 1099, because in general, you're a contractor. Contractors are going to have expenses involved in generating that income. So they want to see the 2 years of tax returns to look at that Schedule C to say how much expense did I write off against that income and arrive at a net figure. So your net income from your Schedule C for the 1099 income can be added to your W-2 employment income, assuming that we've had both of those jobs for 2 years. You've been working 2 jobs for 2 years.
Now, it's something I want to add on to that, Josh. What about, it sort of relates here, what about overtime? Because overtime is another one of those things that comes up. It's not 1099 income, but like bonuses, that sort of thing. How does that reflect into income calculations?
So anything bonus, commission, overtime related, those are variable. They're not guaranteed. You don't have at the beginning of the year, you're going to get $5,000 this year of overtime. You're going to get $10,000 of commission. You're going to get $12,000 of bonus. Commission is based off of how many sales you make. Bonus is generally how well did the company do. Overtime, how much work was available and how much did we need you here above and beyond 40 hours. So because of that, we need a 2-year history, and we need to average it. So hopefully we have a trend that's going up. If you had an awesome year in 2021 and then a lesser year in 2022, and 2023 is kind of year to date in between the two, it's going to not be as simple as just taking an average of it. Most times an underwriter is going to want to look at the worst case of that. So any form of variable income, we need the 2-year history so that we can average it and come to a real number. Literally, Jeb, before we came on the show, 20 minutes before we came on the show, was talking to someone who completed an application, is looking to buy here in Long Beach, California. She's a viewer of the show, and her job, she works for one of the oil refineries, and she's got a lot of flexibility. She says, yeah, those pay stubs are legit. If I want to work 20 hours a week of overtime at time and a half, I can do that. So I can make that much money. And okay, We're less concerned with what you can make, with what you do make. And we go through it, and she goes, oh, no, there's times where I won't even work for a week. I did great the week before. I made more on my overtime than I did on my base pay, and they don't require me to work, so I can just take that week off. I said, cool, that situation, we're going to have to go back and get a complete employment verification of base income and the overtime income for the last 2 years and average it out. And it's going to be much lower than where you're at. And she can absolutely afford the house that she wants to buy. It becomes an issue. I have a hard time qualifying her for what she can afford to buy because of what she's chosen to do in terms of not working as much as possible the last 2 years. So any of that variable income absolutely complicates it. Make sure you are telling your loan officer so they know that. Jeb, we had another interesting one I was telling you about earlier. Also, another either a viewer from your YouTube channel or a listener here on the show. And their situation is they were W-2 and 1099 last year. You're not supposed to structure it that way. Someone cannot be an employee and an independent contractor, but each of the last 2 years, small W-2, larger 1099. This year, no 1099 income, and it's base pay. But the problem is we have $5,000 a pay period salary, and then we had overtime and an hourly rate in there. Well, those are variable. We don't have a 2-year history of it. I can give you this $5,000 a pay period. So just make sure you're open and clear. What I will say when you're trying to qualify for a home, many employers will make it advantageous to you to take a smaller salary and some of this variable pay. But if you want to buy a home now or in the next 2 years, you are better off with a salary that's guaranteed next month that we can use once you have a pay stub in hand or even a job offer in hand.
And what I want to say is if you need a lender to have that conversation with, there's a link in the description below. Check that out. And there's also one scrolling the bottom of the channel. Talk to a professional, right? There's a lot of people that would just hear, hey, you got this income. They'll do calculations, say, hey, you're approved for this, when in fact you might not be because you don't have the time history. So just do the work that needs to be done to make sure you're in the right position if you're putting in offers or planning on buying a house. All right, Josh, we've had a couple of good questions since you started this conversation there. Mike says, what are your thoughts on DSCR loans? Not many people cover this. So main reason people don't cover it is because there's not many out there that actually qualify for it in the big picture. But Josh, what is a DSCR loan?
It's a debt service coverage ratio loan. So it's not for owner occupied properties. It has to be an investment property. So the rents from the property are your ability to repay. They don't look at your income. They say, we need the rents to cover at least 100% of the PITI. Sometimes it's 125% of the PITI. There are lenders that will go down to a 0.75, a 0.9. But then it starts becoming a hybrid loan where they want to see how are you going to feed the negative in there. So where do we see that more often? You have someone that owns a highly appreciated rental property and they can't qualify for a new loan on their own, basically showing their tax returns, but the rents from the property show that they absolutely can qualify. So it's out there, it's popular. It's definitely a solid segment of the market, but it has some limited uses. And for our audience here, the educated home buyer, people looking at buying a home to live in, it's not a usable tool because the rents are what are used to qualify you.
So what about the home in Vista, Josh? Could you qualify on a DSCR loan with the home in Vista?
100%.
So why isn't she doing that?
It's a big loan and it needs to be a second. I don't know. And I'm sure as soon as I say this, someone's going to reach out and say, hey, we do seconds on a DSCR basis. The seller is offering a $900,000 seller carry at 4.5% interest only. You can't get within 1,000 miles of it with a DSCR loan. DSCR loans, what's funny is we usually see a pretty big premium to your Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac standard loans that are sold in mortgage-backed securities. Right now, in certain situations, the non-QM lenders are offering as good, if not slightly better terms than your Fannie Freddie stuff. So it's worth checking if you have a unique situation to even see if it makes sense. But why is she not doing DSCR? It's because the whole thing is predicated off the amazing financing the seller is willing to give.
I got you. All right. Good stuff. Let's see here. Pulse Powered came back in and says using all of the down payment assistance for basically the 20% down from the Dream for All towards the down payment, use my supposed out-of-pocket down payment to pay off all the debt Lowered my monthly by $1,200 with no PMI. Builder just came out and closing on June 15th. Fingers. So fingers crossed, not finger. Congrats. I hope that it works out. Keep us up to date. Would love to know that it got done for you. Hopefully you show up. I know you've been showing up for a while, but hopefully continue to keep us in the loop. I'm interested.
Well, it's interesting, Jeb. The follow-up is we'll surely hit up Josh when it's time to refinance. It's going to be interesting. They let you have the one-time refi on that without paying back the money. Mm-hmm. So it increases the complexity of knowing when to do it. Normally we say, hey, $500,000 loan, if rates drop 0.25%, you can do a no-cost refi, do it. You're going to want to make sure you're getting a nice chunk lower on that interest rate before you do it, because the second time you go to refinance, we're going to have to pay back that fairly large assistance from the state.
All right. Mr. Bearded Vato, another question says, what are your thoughts on the manual underwriting way of buying a house? So it can be done. Josh can give you a little bit more detail, but typically you don't want to have to go manual underwrite unless you absolutely have to, because everything is nitpicked to some extent, right? So there's more eyes on the file, if you will, not more eyes in the sense of more people looking at it, although that could be the case, just a deeper look into your, the complexity of the file and all the, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, which can bring up other issues. But Josh,
the manual underwrite is a person going through. There's no automated underwriting. So why would you do it? You would only do it if you didn't get the automated approval. Now we can have a human go through, put their set of eyes on it and see, does this meet the guidelines? The guidelines are tighter for a manual underwrite than they are for an automated approval, but we do a lot of them. I'm in a group called Vetted VA. It's probably one of the biggest growth areas we've seen this year, is a lot of people needing a manual underwrite for their VA loans. It's most common on VA and FHA. Technically, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will allow manual underwrites. I don't have any sources that will allow a manual underwrite. So you're talking government loans. You're going to have lower debt to income ratios. You're going to sometimes have reserve requirements, compensating factors that come into play. But there's no downside to you as a buyer if you qualify. The downside would be that most times the reason why people don't get the automated approval is because they have lower credit scores. So our lenders that do the manual underwrite, some have a small loan level price adjustment for the manual underwrite. Most don't, but everyone is going to have worse terms for the lower credit score. So Jeb, you and I talked about this earlier today. Like, the best thing that you can do in preparing and wanting to buy a home is optimize and maximize your credit scores. I mean, the simple thing is, what can we do? Could you take 6 months and get from a 570 credit score that VA is eligible for a manual underwrite that you would get at an elevated interest rate? But can you take 6 months, get your credit score to a 640, where you get an automated and much better terms? So nothing bad or negative about a manual underwrite, assuming you qualify and you're comfortable with the terms. But generally it comes down to credit. And I would much rather see you take 3 to 6 months to hammer on that credit and get it up to the mid sixes, where we can probably get you an automated approval.
All right. Red Apples Kim has a question related to VA, similar. Says, can I use my son to qualify for more and not have him on the loan? I don't want him to use his GI Bill. So can a veteran go on a loan with their mom, not using their VA benefits per se, and still be able to buy a home with the VA loan at some point in the future?
So let's look at the first piece of it. If you're buying and you're not a veteran, it's not a VA loan. So we wouldn't be using any of their VA benefits. You wouldn't tie up their certificate of eligibility, any of their entitlement with that. He can go on the loan with you. He does not have to. So the short answer to your question is yes, they can co-borrow with you. So you're asking, I was actually thinking of it the other way. They can go on the loan and not be on title. But if they're borrowing with you to improve you, they have to obviously be on the loan. So he doesn't have to be on title to the property, but he absolutely has to be on the loan. And there's not as big of a downside to this as you think. If you want him to be able to use his VA benefit to buy in the future, he will still be able to. And we will be able to exclude your house payment from his debt to income guidelines, assuming we can provide 12 months of canceled checks showing that you make the payment out of an account that he is not on. And that last part is critical. See this all the time. People say, My mom co-borrowed for me, but it's okay. I make the payments. Okay, cool. I need 12 months canceled checks or a printout showing, the electronic payments coming out of your account, and that comes over and mom's on the account too. So make sure if someone borrows with you that may want to buy on their own later and exclude that payment for qualifying purposes, have an account that they are not on that you are making the monthly payments out of.
All right. Isidore has another follow-up question. I'm a Manny for a family in OC. Boss offered help with down payment loan for home to keep me close. Any options for extra help with down payment assistance? So Orange County, there's not really a lot. If you have somebody willing to give you part of the down payment, that's going to be the bulk of the down payment. Josh, are you aware of any others that might be able to assist in this sort of thing?
No, so I'm not sure if the question is here. Can your boss offer you help?
No,
This is a unique situation. We did the episode, Jeb, on gifts of the podcast, and an employer can be a gift donor. So if they were going to give you a gift, yes. If it's a loan, the loan has to be disclosed. Unsecured borrowed funds are not an acceptable source of funds. So if he made you an unsecured loan, you just write a note. He gives you $10,000. Yes, I will pay you back. It's unsecured borrowed funds. We can't use it. Now, if you borrow it from him today, put it in the bank account for 2 months and then come back and it's seasoned, don't know where you got the money from or that you have the debt to him, although you are expected and required to disclose that on the loan application. But in terms of down payment assistance, the thing that I like to tell people, it's not free money. There's no free money. I was just on a training and I didn't get to pay proper attention to it. I have to go back and watch a recording of the GSFA Platinum program. And you look at it, the more assistance you get, the worse the terms get. If it was going to be forgiven, it's worse. So generally when we pencil it out for borrowers, they look at it and they go, I don't like that. If we're talking about rates already being elevated, do we want to take an even higher rate to get some assistance that's going to be a second lien against the property, a third lien against the property that's going to limit your ability to borrow going forward? So talk to a lender, go through it, go through all of your options, do a side-by-side comparison. Jeb, we always talk about do the side-by-side comparison, see what it looks like, see what a Cal HFA loan looks like, see what a GSFA loan looks like. Generally, when we do that, if the borrower can come up with the down payment and we can get a lender credit or a seller credit to cover the closing costs, that is the preferred route to go.
Good stuff. Ray's Astrophotography gave us a $5 super chat. Well, I actually had your question flagged. It was actually the next question coming up, but you've in turn gifted us money, so I will take that and say thank you for that.
He will not buy and share any 805 though. He will not do that.
We're not drinking anymore. We're done. We're done drinking. Drinking is overrated, Josh. You just don't need it. It's poison. I say that coming off a weekend of exactly. Too many margaritas. But anyhow, what's the forecast for November or December in the Austin market for existing sales? So here's the catch, Ray. I don't know the Austin market well enough to be able to give you any guidance. What I can say is that existing sales in the third and fourth quarter of majority of housing markets out there are going to continue to decline, right? So the spring is typically when you see the most transactions happen. And that kind of pushes into the middle of summer. Summer's when you see the peak in inventory. Towards the end of summer, inventory starts to come down as the kids go back into school. And then as you move into the fall winter market, you've just got less transactions happening because, again, parents are busy with holidays. They're busy with kids' school. They're busy with all these things. Therefore, existing sales decline. The last couple of years have been abnormal in the sense that we've seen very strong months during that period of time. Last year was a bit different because interest rates peaked in October and we had a lot more inventory on the market. Therefore, we saw, just kind of a slowdown. But then as we moved towards the end of December, things starting to pick up a little bit. And then we kind of pushed on to the beginning of the year. So getting back to your question, I don't know. I don't have a number. I don't have any real guidance. I know that Austin has a lot more inventory year over year than it did previously. There was a chart that we got today, Josh, from Calculated Risk here. Let me see if I know I'm looking off camera, but let me try to find this thing real quick here. My wife's doing a bunch of returns from Amazon, so my email is just full of
your bank account should be full if she's doing a bunch of returns to Amazon.
No, unfortunately, that's not the case, Josh. Not the case. Do you see the updated markets from?
Well, look for it. And we're
hold on.
going to take an important poll. Kim asked the question here: Lakers
There
or
we go.
Warriors? So throw your thoughts there in the comment thread, whether you think the Lakers or the Warriors are going to win tonight.
Okay, so Austin's not on this on this list of April inventory. Let me see if I can find another one. Hold on one sec, guys. Bear with me, because we can look at Josh. Find a question and answer it, and I'm going to find this and answer it.
Pulse Powered back with another question here. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about the commercial real estate in trouble. How will that affect the residential side? Probably not much at all. We don't have a whole lot of employment in the commercial side of either lending, leasing, all of that. So what you would have to have happen is it impact homeowners on a great level. It's going to be hard for the lenders that make those loans, which we've talked about here at length. Community banks make the majority of those loans. It's going to be hard on them. It's going to be hard on owners of some of these were previously like trophy properties, very nice shopping centers, strip malls, and just not seeing the demand for that type of space. Office buildings that were in great areas. You've probably seen the headlines here. We've already had a couple of big hedge funds take some real big haircuts on trophy property, not apartment buildings, office buildings that they had bought. But in terms of some type of contagion over into the residential, I just don't see it happening. It's two totally separate finance systems, and it's not a large source of employment that would lead to stress among homeowners of losing their jobs or having rapid decreases in income. Did you find it, Jeb?
The last one I found was from March, and what it shows was that inventory year over year in Austin is up 365.6%. Now, again, that's relative, right? So where was it before? A 300% increase is crazy, but where's it coming from? That's important. But here's the thing: month over month, it increased by only 12%. So still increasing month over month. I would guess that that's going to start to slow down, but it seems like you have a lot more property to choose from. I still think existing home sales are probably going to continue to slow just because of affordability, but impossible to say without actually knowing the market there. There's a couple good YouTubers that do Austin videos. Jeremy Knight is one of them. He also has a second channel that is something Amigos. What is it called?
The Three Amigos?
Not the Three Amigos. Dos Amigos. I don't know. That's a bar here in Huntington Beach. What is it? Anyhow, where they talk about the housing market in Austin. It's a good place to check out and hopefully get your question answered about Austin, because I am not the source for you, unfortunately. Josh, is it possible to consolidate two houses into one mortgage?
Absolutely. So we did this when rates were really decreasing. I had two separate folks who had multiple pieces of highly appreciated real estate, and we literally had to do it to get them qualified. The benefit was we were turning one of the rentals into a free and clear home, getting that owner occupied rate and dropping the payment as much as possible. So essentially you're doing a refinance on one property, but you're ordering the payoff demand on two properties. So let's say your home's gone up to $1 million. You owe $400,000 on the first mortgage, and you have a rental property that you owe $250,000 on. We can do a new $650,000 mortgage on your primary residence. We just order payoff demands for both of them and pay off the second mortgage. There's no escrow, nothing required for the other property, but you're able to do the payoff of both loans through the one escrow for your single refinance.
All right, good stuff. Let's see. Matthew has a question. Says, when selling, does an owner sign anything about the work done on the property? So they essentially sign a repair request if you're asking for repairs to be done.
If the permit was not obtained, Jeb, the follow-up was it with no permit. So I love the question. I don't think we've ever covered it on here before. So if someone does an unpermitted kitchen remodel or an unpermitted master suite addition, anything above and beyond, or does that change your disclosure requirements through the process?
I mean, Not really. There's nothing on there that I'm aware of that says, you know, well, that's not true. I mean, it's unpermitted additions, not unpermitted remodeling on the disclosures that I'm aware of. So what happens is most of this stuff does not get reported, in my opinion. Now, we're aware of, people doing additions on properties, sunrooms, sunroom patio things were a thing for a long period of time. And so a lot of people did them, and they did them unpermitted. And a lot of times you can walk in and see when these things were not done correctly. But oftentimes people did them, in a workmanlike manner and didn't get permits. And you can tell that it was done correctly. And most people don't care in that case. But rarely do you ever see somebody report or sign anything saying this was not permitted on any sort of disclosure form. It's really up to you as the buyer and your buyer's agent to try to get information about additions and that sort of thing. Most remodeling happens like here in Huntington Beach. We have an online website now where you can go check, you can look up a property and you can see all the permits that were pulled on that property. Well, if you see a property, for example, that has been completely opened up, walls were taken down and all of that, well, that needs, permits to do that from the city. And therefore it should be on the city's website when you pull that information up. And so that's the information you want to look for. But as far as a disclosure, there's not a question on any of the disclosure forms that I'm aware of where it talks about that question specifically. So hopefully that's helpful. All right. There was another one that I wanted to get to, Josh, and I don't. Well, you follow up the question, does an owner of a house have to sign a waiver if work was done on a property and there wasn't a permit issued for the work by the city? Not that I'm aware of. But that's going to vary by city, by location, by all of that information. Josh, assume interest rates go back down to 2%. That's a big assumption. Which would win? Increased supply due to people not being locked in, or demand?
Demand, especially in the short run. Let's say we could wave our magic wand and walk in tomorrow, and if someone knew it was temporary, it would make it even worse. But say that for the next 90 days, rates are going to go down to 2%. A ton of people who feared they were locked in forever would run out and use that monopoly money. Kind of one of the examples, Jeb, I'd almost look at what happened with Dream for All. With Dream for All, we didn't get the magic low interest rate. We got a magic down payment. And many sellers got to benefit from the buying power and the incentive for people to buy. So in the long run, it might balance out, but in the short run, it would be just massive excess demand from people coming off the sidelines.
Before that happens, can I go get an offer accepted on a property and then the rates drop like that so that I don't have to battle everybody for the craziness? Right. So been on an hour and 15 minutes. Would like to ask a favor, in that if you find any value tonight, hit the thumbs up, share us with a friend. Anybody looking to buy a house, anybody looking to become educated on the housing market, this is a good place to start. So we appreciate you being here. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do that. If you're looking for additional information, a deeper dive into topics on housing, you'd like more of the back and forth versus a talking head video, which is what a lot of my videos are, go check out the Educated Homebuyer podcast. That's where Josh and I take a deep dive into specific topics, and, typically 25, 35-minute episodes to guide you through that process and really try to give you all the information you need, so that you really don't have to sit here on this show, because a lot of the questions are answered. A lot of those podcast episodes come from questions on this show, and we take it into, another direction, into a deeper direction. So check out the Educated Homebuyer podcast. I think we're sitting at 860 something subs, trying to get to 1,000. Obviously, that's a big number.
There's 174 people here, Jeb. There's 174. They could push us over the top right now.
There's a big, YouTube, the 1,000 subscriber mark is a big mark, and we're all trying to reach it. And with the new channel, it would be awesome if you guys could help us do that. So that said, thank you guys for being here. And if you need a link for a lender or referral, I'll throw that back up in just a little bit. So for those of you who don't know, let's take a side note. Josh, tomorrow is hernia surgery. I am having 2 hernias removed tomorrow, and, actually looking forward to it. Most people would be.
It's worth looking forward to. No, I had mine done last year. It's not a big deal. You're going to be a little bit sore. But once you're fully recovered, 3-6 months down the line, you will be thrilled that you did it.
I've been dealing with the same issue it's been so long that I don't remember when, but it's been over a year, maybe 18 months. And I'm excited not to have to deal with that. So if you don't see me for a day or two, then that's why. But everything should be still coming out on the YouTube channels and the podcast and all that good stuff.
Hey, Jeb,
Yep.
just real quick, House Hacker followed up and said both of those are VA loans. Give me a call. I would love to look into this because they're both VA loans. You have a portion of your entitlement tied up with each one. You should be freeing up some of your entitlement. The cash out refinance, it may end up being a wash when you transfer it over to the other one, but this one is actually more interesting to me. Love VA loans, love helping veterans. Thank you for your service, but reach out and let's see what that would look like. And if it makes sense in terms of freeing up that entitlement, you may be able to do something additional with it further down the line.
All right, good stuff. Pulse Powered asked the question of laparoscopic, and the answer is yes. I think there's 3 incisions going in, and one with a camera, one with all this stuff. This whole thing's crazy. How they do this whole thing, but I'm ready. Let's do it. I would leave now and go do it, but it's not an option. Okay, good question here, Josh, about jumbo loans. Says looking at Optimal Blue. What does it seem like? Why does it seem like the jumbo loan rates are so volatile relative to other loan types? So why do we see that volatility in the market?
I would say they're less volatile. Recently, they've gone up relative to other interest rates, primarily because a lot of them are portfolio lenders. They're the banks that we talk about that have seen their cost of funds go up and not an equal ability to increase the rates on the loans that they make. One of our lenders actually puts out a little chart every day that rather than saying what happened to interest rates, it's a red arrow up, green arrow down, little dash if it doesn't go sideways or if it's going sideways. And the jumbo stuff doesn't move nearly as much. What I will say is sometimes it's counterintuitive. The other day rates were worse. We had a bunch of red arrows on the chart and then green for the jumbo. So it really, they kind of all get to set their own terms. So you're probably seeing things that don't jive with what you see happening in treasuries or mortgage-backed securities. It's just the whims of the lenders and where they need their profit levels on those.
All right. Awesome. I don't want to mean to beat this to death, but Matthew has a follow-up question on what he asked earlier. It says, I'll clarify, we put into egress windows that were done professionally and up to spec. So I would say in that case, there's nothing to really report. I mean, obviously, I'm not your realtor. I'm not giving you advice, but window change like that, adding a window, does it need to be permitted? I mean, if it was done professionally in a professional manner, I think you're probably solid. But I don't think any buyer would really care on that either, unless it was, done janky and that sort of thing. So just keep that in mind. Sergio has a similar question. Says, I have a question. If you're buying a home, can the seller provide you with the receipts from everything he remodeled? It's something you can always ask for. A lot of sellers, believe it or not, don't keep all the receipts, but many do. I mean, I just had a client who lived in her home 57 years who had every document that they ever did with that house. So it's possible. Most people, if they have it handy, are willing to share that information. Occasionally you'll find people that aren't willing to do it for one reason or another, but most people are willing to, show you, hey, I did $300,000 in remodel. This is where it came from. And, this is the work that was done. So, but doesn't mean just because you ask, doesn't mean they have to require it, just, or give it to you, just so you know. It's nice to have, not need to have. Let's see here. I feel like I'm missing part of Renee's question. Oh, that's why. Renee says, I live in Palm Desert and have been looking for a second home in OC under 1.5, poking around East Side Costa Mesa. When did prices go to $1,500 a square foot? That market is insane. And you go on to say that you feel like you are competing against all the Newport, Santa Ana Heights folks who don't want to spend $3 to $4 million. And you nailed it. That's exactly what happened. all the people pushed out of Newport Beach. Eastside Costa Mesa is essentially an extension of Newport Beach. And, that's where they're moving to. And the same thing is happening even in South Huntington Beach area that's, that butts up to Newport. A lot of those homes right there have gone up considerably in value because those people pushed out of Newport, Eastside Costa Mesa are now coming into Huntington, pushing up the prices there as well. So that is definitely a problem. If you don't have an agent and you need somebody and you specifically what you're looking for, you should reach out, because always aware of properties that aren't on the market, people that are willing to do things for one reason or another, just looking for the right buyer. Some of those homes have not hit the market. I mean, I'd said 3 out of 4 sales this year were off market sales. So just keep that in mind. A lot of transactions happening that aren't reporting on the MLS.
Jeb, someday when we're over in that area, I will drive you by the house that I wanted badly. And it was a specific house. It needed a bunch of work, but it actually, I became aware of it because it was on a foreclosure list. It kept going, notice of default, and then it would get cured, notice of default, get cured. Finally went to sale. I tried to talk one of my investors who had huge sums of cash and buying it at a trustee sale. Didn't want to do it. Long story short, the thing sold, was listed, sold for $950. That house today, if you had done a $400,000 remodel on it at the time, it's upwards of $3.5–4 million now. So I'm not mad. I'm not mad that I didn't get to do that. That I had the foresight to find the perfect home and just didn't execute on the plan to get it. It only cost me a couple $1 million.
That's nothing. Nothing in the big picture.
You make it up in the long run, right?
Exactly. Anya says, does new roof transfer warranty to a new owner? I would say most do. But make sure you read, the little booklet that comes with it. And also keep in mind, if you're using like a main, nationwide roofing company, it's likely going to transfer. You're likely going to pay more for your roof in that case too. But, I've seen roofs done by smaller companies, and they offer these warranties, and guess what? They're out of business in 5-10 years because they're getting ready to retire. And that warranty is only as good as the paper that it's written on at that point. So probably, if you're looking for the transfer and all of that good stuff, just make sure you're looking for, somebody that with a reputation. I saw a good question here, and Josh, it has eluded me. We'll go with this one. My wife has a good credit score, 742, and makes $240 per year. I have bad credit, 620, and make $150 per year. I also have some late payments.
She's got great credit and income and bad decision-making skills.
That's what it seems like here. Sorry, HBK. I also have some late payments and collections. Does it affect getting a loan if I add? That's all we got. I'm assuming himself to the loan is what I'm coming away with here. So how does that work?
Yeah, it's basically the pricing will come down to the lowest common denominator. So of the two, they're going to take the lower median credit score for pricing and eligibility. If we're not talking a jumbo loan, or we're talking standard Fannie and Freddie, your score at 620 is not bad. Let's be realistic. I talk to people all the time. I'm not going to name names, but I saw one with a 480 this last week. So 620 relative to that is spectacular.
I don't know that I've ever seen that.
And your wife didn't make that bad of a decision after all, because you're 140 points better than that. But long way of saying 620 is doable. 620 meets the minimum criteria for a conventional loan. If she can do it on her own, you are much better off doing it in just her name, putting you on title and not being on the loan. If we need your income to qualify, it's not going to keep you from getting that loan. We also had a change. It's probably about a year ago now for eligibility purposes. You need to have a 620 credit score for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, but they will average for eligibility. So say your wife, you say 740 and you have a 620. So the average on that is 680. So even if you were at 619, you guys would be eligible based off of the average of your two credit scores. The pricing would still fall to your score. But hopefully that answered your question, even though I got cut off there of what your options are.
All right. Let's see. Josh.
Let's just keep. Yeah, that's exactly where I was.
How
going.
high is the interest to buy a second home?
So historically, until about a year and a half ago, and this leads, all roads lead back to that LLPA conversation. One of the things that Sandra Thompson said in her misinformation news release was that the massive increase in LLPAs for both investment properties and second homes is what is used to subsidize low income buyers. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. Let's not go there. But let's say that we did have a huge increase to LLPAs. Prior to about 12, 18 months ago, a second home was priced like a primary residence. You had to put at least 10% down, but you'd get the same rates as if you were buying your first home. Now they are priced identically to an investment property. So Fannie Freddie, you're looking at a 4.125 point LLPA if you put 20% down on a second home. So with that, we normally say a 0.25% increase in rate is equivalent of a 1 point LLPA. So you could say 4 times that, it's a 1% increase to the rate, but lenders don't want to pay up for the higher note rates now. So it's the equivalent to probably a 1.25 increase in rate, and you're coming out of pocket to pay your lender because there's not enough premium pricing there to pay your lender for you. So you're paying points, you're paying a massively higher rate. For this reason, this is where we want to start looking at portfolio lenders, jumbo lenders, if the loan is big enough, non-QM lenders, because a lot of them are actually better than Fannie Freddie after those changes to the LLPAs.
All right, here's a question that's off topic. Anya, a moment ago, mentioned we in a comment that she put in here. So I'm assuming that means you're married or you have a partner. I think you're in Florida, so it's what, 9:30 there. What does your partner think about you being on YouTube 2 hours, at least an hour, every Wednesday night watching Josh and I as a homeowner already? I'm just curious. I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube watching videos, other than kids videos that my things that my kids watch on. We watch it on the TV, things like Dude Perfect and some of these, challenge type YouTube channel. Definitely nothing educational, but sitting there for an extended period of time and actually typing, I would probably I'd get divorced or yelled at or it just wouldn't work out. So I'm curious to know how this whole relationship thing works. She's working overtime. So you're at work doing this. This is fantastic.
Getting paid for overtime. I like it. Getting paid for watching these two guys.
I work until midnight. Everyone. What is going on? What do you do? Let's find that out. That's the next question. We're going to find out more about Anya than we need to know. Dina, same with you. Dina, you married or you single? You're here every week?
She's single. Remember, she had a boyfriend here on the show that was trying to get her number.
I know that we're asking a lot of personal questions, guys, but this is going to lead to the answers you guys want to know.
To your divorce.
All right, so let's keep going. 6:30 in. Some of these questions were from a bit ago. I wanted to click on this question earlier. Somehow I got sidetracked, but Bankroll TJ says, I bought my new construction home, $255 in Atlanta, Georgia. My mortgage has gone up to $535 due to increased property tax, or has gone up by $535 due to increased property tax. Is this normal? Please forgive my ignorance. I was a first-time home buyer. So is it normal? I guess it depends on which state you live in, right? Here in California, property taxes are tied essentially to the value that you purchased from the home. Other states, for example, North Carolina, I believe is one that doesn't have a cap on property taxes. So your property taxes go up as values in that area increase. There's no sort of homestead, nothing that keeps them from rising above a certain point. Georgia, if it's like that, yeah, that would be normal for that market. It's not great, but as your value increases, you're going to pay more. That's the easy answer for those areas that don't have some sort of homestead on a cap, if you will. Melanie is asking, would you recommend a 7-year conventional loan with a 5% down payment, Josh? No PMI, 5% down, no PMI, or an FHA fixed rate with PMI?
A question. I'm not saying that you should just know this, but like There's no world in which you take the FHA loan. We've been talking about it on the show. A lot of people are getting pushed to it. I love the FHA loan. It's great, but you're putting 3.5% down, or even if you put 5% down to match the conventional loan, they're going to put 1.75% back on top of the loan. So you're essentially paying 1.75 points and $500 more a month. 7 years is plenty enough time. 7 years, the home's going to go up in value.
Where are you getting $500 for?
I thought that
no,
I might have been looking at another one.
Let's
I
back
thought we had
up,
another
Josh.
question. Okay.
Josh is confused here. He's factoring multiple questions in, unless I missed a piece of it.
No, there was another one there that was saying it was $500 lower. No,
okay.
Here, hold on. It's Melanie right here. It's the same question. Hi guys, would you recommend a 7-year ARM conventional loan, no PMI, or FHA with PMI and 700? You had me thinking I was going crazy.
No, I was looking at a different question.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, it was the same question, same person. I'm like, wait, it disappeared. Where was the additional information? So $700 higher payment? No. I mean, you're paying 0.55% a month. I'm assuming that's where some of that $700 more is coming from. You're getting less credit for your down payment. You're paying a higher interest rate. No world. 7 years is plenty enough time to take that risk. If you're worried, take the $700 a month. That's $8,400 a year for the next 7 years, and put that, $56,000, $60,000 aside, and you can buy the loan down at the end of the 7 years. But you will come out ahead with the 7-year ARM, and just look for an opportunity at some point through the line there to refinance to a 30-year fixed.
All right. Platinum Black says, are investors buying up homes at these rates, or is that now over? So we talked earlier today, Josh, and we said that investors right now, if you look at existing home sales, I think was sitting around 18% of the buyers were investors, which essentially matched about where we were this time last year. So if you're looking at that information, it doesn't look like there's any less investors in the market. I will say that there's definitely less investors in the market. So not 100% accurate when I say that, but there's still investors buying homes. Many of them buy them in cash to start with. So that's a big portion of the market. But I think the bigger question here is, are the Blackstones, are the big hedge funds, are all of these guys still buying property at the rate that they were? And I think the easy answer is no. Cash is not as cheap as it was back then. It's not as readily available. A lot of these, big companies, conglomerates, if you will, are also in the commercial space. They own commercial real estate. They're going to get hit on that front. So less of that happening, which should, open up some of that to buyers, that actually want to live in the homes.
So Jeb, can we put you on the spot and answer a live question?
Sure.
They're all live questions, but one specifically related to your expertise and something I'm assuming you have not seen yet. Why has this MLS number been on the market for 259 days? And it is in our market. So
are you pulling it up? Hold on.
Yeah, I've got it.
You're going to put it on the TV?
Yeah,
on the TV, on the computer. All right, let's see here.
So let's add it to the stream. So this is actually
okay. So that's Seabridge. Oh, no, that's Beach Walk. That's okay. Know it well. Why has it not sold? It is at least $100,000 overpriced. They paid way too much for the property. So they bought this property. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home. They called me before they bought it. This is a lot of information here. They called me before they bought it and asked me what I thought it could sell for. And I told them, because I had sold one similar, but mine was a true 3-bedroom. Okay. At that time, this one was a 2-bedroom at the time. They called me and said, hey, if we did this addition, what do you think we could sell it for? And I told them it was much below the number they have it listed at now. They ended up doing the addition, making it a 3-bedroom, but the price has been at the same price for that period of time. Homes in that community have sold 10 times over. I mean, we've had tons of transactions in that community. I know it because I live in it. And so I know this property very, very well, but the main reason it hasn't sold is because it's overpriced. They also did some shoddy things. Like they remodeled the entire house, but they kept the original windows. I mean, mind boggling. Like, why would you do the remodel that you did and keep aluminum windows in a flip like this? So a lot going on there.
Jeb, is it safe to say that you don't agree that this one is absolutely the best value in Huntington Beach?
That would be safe to say, yes.
Would
That
it
would
also
be
be safe to say that in 259 days, the market has also spoken and said this is not the absolute best value in Huntington Beach?
that is correct. That is
Okay.
correct, for many reasons. So I can give you all the information you want to need on that one, or that you need on that one. So you kind of put me on the spot there, Josh.
That
Like you
was a
said you were going
softball.
to.
That was a softball question. I thought Deep Harbor was in Beach Walk where you live, but you did knock it out of the park with actual insider information about, is Platinum Black a plant? Did you ask him to
I
ask
did
this
not. I
question
don't know
so
who
you
that
could?
is, but that's a
Okay.
good one to have. That would be great. It's probably Jeff Counterman on here. Too funny. Anyway,
We have my favorite comment of the night. It's not a question, it's just a comment. Emlo says, haha, we just bought our house last year and still hang around, but I'm in California too. Usually starts when I'm driving the kids home. I relay things later to my husband. Hey, today Jeb and Josh said X. LOL. If you had any idea how many fights Jeb and I have had to get in because a husband showing up saying, why are you talking to my wife? Why is she quoting you idiots?
that's too funny. Don't ever use that in an argument. Jeb and Josh said this, because
That's the
that will
best way
end
to
up
win
in
an
a
argument.
sheer.
Jeb and Josh said, now you won. You've
You'll
already
be
won at
banned
that point.
from all things YouTube at that point if you do that craziness. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. This is Radiant Kratos. Loaded question. But what do you think will finally make home inventory increase back to normal levels? Good luck on surgery. So appreciate the good luck there. Hopefully I don't need luck. I just need an expert, which I think I have. So all is good there. What will make inventory increase? This is really probably the million, 10 million, $100 million question out there. If anybody could truly answer it with, fact, and when it would happen, would, that's the one that everybody wants to know, needs to know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. There's not an easy answer to it, right? I mean, I was talking to my mother-in-law a week ago, and she made the comment like, I've, seen a lot of markets in my time. I've never seen a market like this, because people are locked into this interest rate. They can't do anything for a number of reasons. So I don't think you see inventory increase until you see like back to normal levels, until you see interest rates move considerably lower. When is that going to happen? Will that happen? I think there's a chance that it happens. I just don't know. I don't think it's any time in the near term.
So, Jeb, we talked about the podcast next week. We actually went through and gave our answers on a question that sort of hints at this, and several other experts, but Anya is throwing her hat in the ring. Says 4.5% interest rate. Sellers will be back in the market.
I think that is, it will,
Pretty close.
that will put some sellers in the market. Yes. It will not get inventory to normal levels. And when I say normal, we're talking 2017, 2019 levels. Those are more normal levels, right? So as of today, Orange County, 2,051 homes is what was on the market. 2017 to 2019 normal levels this time of year would be over 6,000 homes. I mean, that's a huge increase from where we are today. I don't know that 4.5% is going to get us there, but again, podcast comes out Wednesday. Check it out. Josh, Mr. Josh.
Got a good one here. Arnab is back. Do you guys think it's a good time to rate lock? If the closing is in 4 months, that's when the house will be ready. Do you see rates going down in the next 2 months? Yes. Is it going to be significant? That's the $24 million question. Jeb took the slides away, or if we go back to those CPI figures, we got two big reads coming off the next 2 months. One of the economists that we follow and appreciate about 80% of his thoughts and think he's like dead on. And he knows numbers better than Jeb and I do, but he has a couple of crazy thoughts. But he thinks there's a line in the sand at about 3.25% on the 10-year treasury. And if we go below that, we'll probably see a pretty big improvement. So what does that mean? Do we go to 3? Do we go to 2.85? Do we go to 2.9? You also have on top of that, at a certain point, the market buyers of mortgage-backed securities are going to conclude that with rates coming down and normalizing, that the massive prepayment risk that they've priced into those spreads between treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, that will begin to normalize slowly over time. So long way of saying, I would not lock. I wish I had another chart here to pull up for you guys. Matthew Graham, one of the guys that Jeb and I follow, he has a cool little thing that shows you support and resistance, red and green, where we're at. And we've been in a range for about 8 to 10 weeks right now, but we keep testing the bottom of the range, and it fails once, twice, and goes to the top of the range, and then works back down, fails a couple times at the bottom of the range, and moves up. We didn't even move to the top of the range this time. We're just hanging out in the middle and moving back towards the bottom. I think it is going to give way. I have no way of guaranteeing you that. I'm asking you to bet with your money and not my own money, but I would absolutely be floating right now cautiously.
Well, there you go. Look at it. Bottom left.
Is there any? Yeah, it's that bottom left, the little thing with the two green ticks on the right, the two red ticks on the green on the left, red on the right. So we're pushing there. If we get below to the left of those two green lines, then we're off to the races, and we will see rates improve fairly significantly. Now, I want to be careful in saying that. For most people, a buyer of a new home, and I believe you're in California, a 0.5% move is a significant move, big, massive move. And I locked a friend of mine at 5.99 on a conventional about 10, 12 weeks ago. That's doable. That's reasonable. National Mortgage News Daily or Mortgage News Daily is quoting 6.57 right now, and that's about right, somewhere mid sixes. So a 0.5% improvement would make a big difference. I think that is a possibility within the next 2 months, definitely not a guarantee. And if we started pushing the high side of that range, we would watch it. I have a client right now. She's in consulting. She watches mortgage rates. She watches interest rates. She watches treasuries. And she says, let's just get it closer to closing and give it an opportunity to work out at the bottom of that range. And when I have a client that's comfortable with that, that's where my comfort level is right now.
All right. Let's talk about Tony. So Tony Nelson is a follower here on the channel. And Tony, I started following Tony on Instagram because Tony had asked me a question, and I think he's in like Apple Valley market, somewhere in that. This dude either buys a house every day, sells a house every day, or rehabs a house every day. I mean, every day there's like a new project going on. So Tony, how many homes do you own is what I would like to know. And how many of these transactions are you keeping versus selling or whatever? I'm curious.
Jeb, why have you been holding out this information, and why have we not gone out to Apple Valley and become best friends?
I might be wrong. He might not even be. I might have just made that
like,
up.
That's the wrong Tony, you crazy man.
No, it's the right Tony. I might be in the wrong market, but I mean, I have a couple guys that I follow here, but I think I see Tony's face every single day holding a sold sign. So clearly the branding is working, Tony, in case you were wondering, but you're doing good stuff out there, man. So congrats.
There's no question mark, so it could have thrown you off, but nickel 6 deuce 5 6 2. That's redundant. It's redundant, but anyways, I'll tolerate it.
5 6 2.
Where do you see home prices in 5 years, Mr. Jeb?
I think higher than they are now. I don't have a number percentage wise than that. That's impossible to say, but I don't think prices go down from here. Yeah, that's my answer.
I say 15%.
Higher?
Yeah. I would say 3% annually. 3% annually doesn't just add up to 15%. It's more than that. But we could have a year at 2% in there. You could have a year at 1%. You could have a year with a little bit of a loss. But plus or minus 15%. And I think I've mentioned it here before on the show. I love a book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, poker player. She basically says, listen, you're not 100% certain of anything. So when you say that, what's my level of certainty? I'd say 65, 70% certainty. That's what's going to happen based off of projection and trajectory of interest rates, supply, demand. So we can adjust as we go, but I'd say with 60, 70% certainty.
We actually have a better question, and I'm going to answer because there's
Wesley is
a
going to get
bias.
punched in the mouth. Wesley is going to get punched in the mouth.
There's a
Wesley,
bias
you're lucky you are on the other side of the computer.
Josh, the easy answer is no. They won't. They'll never win.
This coming from a Carolina Panthers Kinston home fan.
Up, listen, you look at my teams. My teams are,
Wesley triggered me. I thought we were friends.
I'm a Carolina basketball fan. We had a bad year, right? But historically speaking, we've done well. I don't really have an NBA team I root for. I don't really care for the NBA. Football, I'm a Panthers fan. Unfortunately, we've been to 2 Super Bowls and both have not worked out very well.
I thought for sure you were going to say you were a Bobcats fan to show how big of an NBA fan you are.
I'd be less of a. It's not even the Bobcat. Aren't they back to the Hornets now?
Oh, wait. Yes, they're back to being the Hornets, but Wesley and I are back to being good friends again. He's a Clippers fan. He wasn't trying to.
No, dude, you already talked crap to Wesley. Wesley, you should not be his friend.
Wesley was wanting
outed you before actually hearing the full story. Josh likes to do that. He will crush you before he actually knows all the facts. So there you go. Just something else you didn't know.
Untrue.
About Josh.
I am very deliberate and gather all facts before crushing.
All right. We bicker like friends sometimes. There you go. All right, guys, it's 6:50. What I'm going to ask here, 149 of you, if you haven't hit the like button, please do it. If you haven't headed over to the Educated Home Buyer podcast, please do it. You can go to theeducatedhomebuyer.com. That's one way to get to us, but we're on all the podcast platforms, all of that stuff. I appreciate you guys showing up every week. Appreciate the support. It means a lot. It really does. I know we joke around a lot about it, but it's why we're here. So with that said, Josh, I'm going to throw it your way. And there we are.
Yeah. Well, here, time will tell. I think you guys know that Jeb and I research a lot, like to hear contrasting opinions, even if they're lunatic crash bros. You want to hear where they're coming from and see if they have some sort of good argument that would actually hold up. But we're just here to analyze the numbers. We have some great resources that give us data, but it's only so good. It changes over time. We haven't always been right here on the show. We're willing to admit it and we're willing to adjust, but appreciate you guys being here and enjoying what we share and taking this journey with us. Jeb and I don't have a choice. We are one-trick ponies. Real estate and mortgage is all we know how to do. So we have to, for the sake of our families, do all of this research. So we appreciate you for giving us an outlet for sharing it.
There you go. With that said, guys, until next time, adios.
And via con Dios.